Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, beyond the headlines, beyond the spin. Straight facts, sharp analysis, and common sense conversation you won't hear anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to another edition of Inside Politics. I'm Kevin Klein, joined as always by two of my columnist colleagues at the Winnipeg Sun. We have Lawrence Pinsky, KC, a former human rights adjudicator, and Royce Koop, who is a professor of political sciences at the University of Manitoba. On the last episode, we talked an awful lot about what was happening inside the Liberal Party. We have to come up with a name for it, like they have the Kardashians. We have to come up with something for the Liberal Party so that Royce can spend more time talking about it. But one of the topics that did pop up during our discussion was Bill C9. And Royce also has a column at winnipegsun.com about a motion a bill that was put forward in Manitoba for Christian Heritage Month. So let's start with you, Royce, about the Christian Heritage Month and what that means. I guess now it's a private member's bill, so it's dead because the session ended on Thursday.
Yeah, this was a private member's bill put forward by PC MLA Carrie Hiebert. And so I guess she probably want to introduce it for December, but she'll need to reintroduce it when the legislature comes back. This was a bill to designate December as Christian Heritage Month, which I think is a great idea. We're all familiar with the arguments against these sorts of proposals that it kind of privileges Christianity, it denigrates other religions. I think I've kind of come around to being against these kinds of arguments. Canada has changed a lot in terms of its religious makeup in the last few decades. We've had lots of people come here that are not Christians. They're Muslims or Sikhs or Hindus. And Canada is much more diverse in terms of its religion than it used to be. I know that I think in the last 20 years, the proportion of people that identify as Christians in Canada has dropped by like 20%, very, very fast descent. And so if Canada is going to be a pluralistic place with religious diversity, then we shouldn't be afraid to recognize all religions and give all religions these times or occasions in which to celebrate their contributions to Canadian society. And that's exactly what Miss Hiebert has done here. And so I really support this. I hope it goes through, and I'd like to see more recognition of religious communities in this country, including Christians, not less.
I'm totally in favor of it because it's done for so many other faiths and community groups. Why are Christians less? How is it that it denigrates anybody to celebrate Christianity? As the saying goes, you don't have to blow out somebody else's candle for yours to shine brighter. In fact, it's the compilation of all the candles that cause the greatest light. So it's the same thing that people get upset or whatever, talk about microaggressions and other nonsense if someone says Merry Christmas. I don't celebrate Christmas, as you guys know. I love when people say Merry Christmas. Why would you be offended by that? Mm-hmm. Why would anyone be offended? I'm happy when they say Happy Hanukkah too. I'm happy with that too. Doesn't matter to me. It's just a nice greeting. And this notion that Christians are second class or people should be embarrassed by it is absolutely and utterly ridiculous in my view. I don't know why they waited till the last moment to introduce the bill. That might have something to do with procedure in Parliament, at the Legislature. That could be the case. I'm not sure. It could be something else, but I think it's high time. It should be recognized. How could you have Islamic Heritage Month, Jewish Heritage Month? I'm sure many other heritage months, mm-hmm. and not recognize Christian Heritage Month in December when it's Christmas. Why would you not do that?
It's funny. I wrote a column about this a few weeks ago in the Winnipeg Sun, talking about my time as a politician. When I first got into politics, with people telling me, "Don't talk about your religion," and make sure you go to all these different places of worship but don't be taking pictures at the church, or don't be taking pictures, at a Christian event. And I talked about that, and I said, it seems to me that we all deserve to have that peace. And whatever religion that your faith is, if you find peace and you find happiness, you find joy and find self-worth with that, why can't you talk about it? Or why can't we celebrate all religions the same? This really, and I agree with both of you. I think that this should be done because we do this for other religions. We're kind of famous in Canada now. We have a month a day for everything. Why wouldn't we have something for Christianity? But I do remember in politics, don't talk about your faith. Don't talk about your faith. Go here, go to this place instead, go to that place instead, and take pictures. But I never understood that. And it really kind of bothered me because then I thought, well, I'm not being true to myself at running as a politician because I can't talk about my faith. I have to hide that fact. I can go celebrate everybody else's faith and attend all the events and wear the special apparatus or whatever it may be, but you can't do it for your own religion. And
Or no
that scares
religion.
me. Or no
Or
religion.
if you're an atheist or agnostic.
Right.
There's Pride Heritage Month, Pride Day,
Yep.
all these other months and days. You should absolutely be able to celebrate it, and it's one of the founding base. I mean, Canada's based upon Judeo-Christian culture as well as Indigenous beliefs. That's the basis of our country. It's pluralistic now, an interesting political actual analysis in terms of multiculturalism as an offset to French nationalism in Quebec that Mr. Trudeau the First did. But we celebrate that, even though multiculturalism has largely failed in our country and in Europe. But that's what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to respect all of it. There's no reason to denigrate Christians because historically they've been the majority. On the contrary, Christianity ought to be celebrated. It's contributed tons to Canadian culture.
But I wonder because the NDP in Manitoba are very activist orientated. I don't know if they're going to support a private member's bill as such. I don't know if they're going to put that through. I think they're going to try not to, of course, and she has to reintroduce it. But it kind of brings back to, here's in one part of the country where we're trying to acknowledge Christian Heritage Month in December when Christmas is, but you have what we talked about in a previous show, Mark Miller, now made a minister again. And talking about, making it illegal to talk about some things that are in the Bible.
So let me touch on that a little bit. And sorry, Royce, you'll want to talk about it in a sec. But so Bill C9 is a bill in Parliament in Ottawa that talks about amending the hate laws under the criminal code. And there appears to be some deal, at least the start of a deal, between the Bloc Québécois and the Liberals that changes what Bill C9 says. And Bill C9 itself is problematic, complicated and problematic. But Mr. Miller said essentially that reading or teaching parts of the Bible might be hate crimes. And that in the existing hate legislation, there's exemptions for a religious belief and practice, because the truth is these are old scriptures, and what was accepted or was prohibited at one point may not be now. It might be different, and we have to interpret it. We have to interpret the Bible in a way that's consistent with its themes, obviously, and what it's trying to teach, but also in a way that's reasonable in today's world. I would argue, some would argue that's wrong. The state has no business in playing around with other people's faiths or religions, and that's what Mr. Miller and the Liberals and maybe the Bloc is now trying to do. An aggressive form of secularism that interferes with people's rights, when really government should be pulling back and getting out of people's lives, not interfering with that basic core belief. One of the most fundamental things of people is what they believe, and the government has no place doing that. But Mr. Miller and the Liberals are saying that teaching Bible, he didn't talk about the Quran, funny enough, which has all sorts of interesting provisions in it, but that he might find to be hateful. But what Mr. Miller is saying affects Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and it's very, very problematic.
Yeah, it needs a multi-faith response as a result of that. One of the reasons that I support Hiebert's bill is because Christians are treated horribly in some parts of the world, in some regions right now. There's the best example is in Nigeria, which has lots of Christians. In the northern part of the country, they're living under Sharia law. And they're subject to horrific violence from terrorist groups, from Boko Haram. And we've seen tens of thousands of Christians killed solely because of their religion, solely because they're Christians, for no other reason. The state, in a lot of cases, turning a blind eye to that. In Canada, we've seen churches burned to the ground over the last few years, and it's within that context that we have to hear the words of this. Now he's a minister. Mark Miller has returned to cabinet, saying that reading excerpts from the Old Testament could count as a hate crime under a bill that has been written and amended by the Liberal Party and the Bloc Québécois. I thought like Lawrence, I have concerns about this bill as a whole, but at least there was some kind of compromise here to try to protect religious expression, which, by the way, is a charter protected right. We do have religious rights protected in this country. With this most current amendment, I think it's very concerning, and people have are right to be concerned about it as well.
So two things on this that I want to mention. The number one is you mentioned what's happening to Christians around the world, and it's shocking to me that nobody talks about it, right? It doesn't make mainstream media. You don't see world leaders talking about it, except I guess Trump now is starting to take action saying that it's got to stop, or he's going to get involved, or stopping immigration from certain countries that do that, which is good on him to do that. But you just don't hear about it. For some reason, it's kept quiet, and that kind of bothers me. Number two, and from somebody who sat in government, I'm so tired about these elected officials trying to get involved in my life, my day-to-day life. You know what? We have major crisis happening in Canada, economically, trade, you name it. We have all these problems, and you're going to spend how many hours, how many staff are going to be put onto it on a bill that has, it's none of your business what I think. It's none of your business what I feel. As long as I pay my taxes, you do your job and make sure that it's a safe country, make sure that we have health care, make sure that you live up to the responsibilities of government. I don't see why, and I think this is I go back to when Mr. Trudeau, the first one, was in power, right? When a lot of people said, "Stay out of our bedroom." Like you're not allowed to get involved into people's personal lives. And why do we even debate it? Why are we even talking about it? Why is it even allowed in Parliament? And I look to you, Royce, as a political professor. This is the type of stuff that really isn't under the jurisdiction, if you will, or of the government. Like, why are they doing this? This is nothing more than grandstanding, if you will, or social engineering. I don't know. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I think the government does have to try to stay on top of some of these issues. I mean, especially with the nature of the internet, it's kind of an ongoing challenge. Things change, and they have to try to stay on top of it. The Liberal Party, both under Trudeau, now under Carney, have basically flubbed this time and time again. And part of the problem is that you have people in the Liberal caucus like Mark Miller who have views that are not inconsistent with what the majority of Canadians think, which is what you just said. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the state should stay out of the bedrooms of the nation. But of course, there is a wing of the Liberal Party that wants a very big role for the state in regulating speech, regulating what you say online, and going way too far in that direction. And that's the concern with people like Mark Miller. I think he's made it very clear that he thinks there's a big role for the state in regulating speech, even if this is old speech been around forever in religious texts.
Well, from a legal perspective, Lawrence, I watched an awful lot of British news, and I'm starting to see people getting arrested for what they say on Twitter. Uh, I don't understand this at all. Like, I sit back and go, what is happening to the world? What is it? Like, we have so many other things happening. If you want to buy a roast, you need to get a second mortgage on your house in Canada. This is not the biggest problem that we have. Like, and you're going to have police go door to door and say, we saw your tweet early this morning. put your hands behind your back. You're coming with us.
So it's great that you mentioned that. Hate crimes against Christians are on the rise across all of Europe, with the United Kingdom identified as experiencing one of the biggest increases of these thought crimes. So there is a corrosive vein among leftist parties that wants to intervene directly in people's lives and thoughts. And you can draw a direct line to Mr. Carney and his book. That's exactly what he talks about, is intervening in people's lives and the economy. It's what Mr. Trudeau did wrongfully in using the Emergencies Act. It's across the board, and it's hugely problematic. There's a teacher in the UK. I'll just call up her name. I was just looking at that while you guys were talking. Christy Higgs, 47, dismissed for gross misconduct at a school after privately sharing a post expressing concerns about sex education at her child's primary school. Another one, Maureen Martin, dismissed by her housing association for expressing publicly her belief that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. Now, I might not agree with that, but I mean, these people are being dismissed from their jobs, A. B, police are arresting people, are seizing cell phones in the United Kingdom for thought crimes. It's unbelievable. And Bill C9 and Mr. Miller are directly on that path. And it's a huge, huge problem. And Mr. Miller is not an outlier. It is entirely consistent with what Mr. Carney talked about in his book. And it's really atrocious. Canadians need to be aware of what's going on here.
Yeah, but my question to both of you is, why are they not aware? Like, why is this not a much bigger deal? Like, why aren't Canadians protesting this as opposed to the many other things that we find to be able to protest? This, to me, is where we have to take back the power as the citizens of the country, if you will, and start telling politicians, stay out of my business and just run the country, because you're doing a very poor job running our country. You're running it into the ground. Thank you very much. And meanwhile, you're worried about what I put on Twitter. I don't understand it. Royce, tell me, what is wrong with society that we're just ignoring it?
I think a lot of people are busy trying to make ends meet in this country right now, trying to raise their kids. And there's a million things to think about in addition to this liberal bill. There's also the view, I think, that in the last few years, people on the right in particular they talk about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms more than they used to. They think the Charter is going to protect them from government overreach. Well, I don't know about that. The freedom of expression, almost all of our freedoms that are protected in the Charter are subject to limits in a reasonable limits and a
Free
fair,
and democratic.
yeah, sorry, thank you, Lawrence. And the courts have been more than willing to say that, yeah, this infringes your expression rights, but that's okay. It's a reasonable limit. And so these expression issues, as they relate to the internet, to hate crimes, these are things that we have to deal with in the political realm. If people are concerned, they actually need to do something about it. They need to get involved in politics. They need to say something. They maybe need to take out a membership in the Conservative Party and make sure the party stays focused on these issues. Don't leave it to the courts. I think that would be a major mistake on this issue, given the way they've ruled on these issues in the past.
So I'm going to point the finger in a different direction at the media, the mainstream media, the bought and paid for media. They should be focusing on this. They should be, investigative journalists should be out there in mainstream media talking about what a threat this is, what's going on in the United Kingdom, as an example, that we've touched on a little bit here. There's so much more we could say about that. And they're not doing that. And it's part of the same dogmatic view that has infiltrated universities, infiltrated media, mainstream media at least. And we see what that results in is exactly what we're talking about. And that's a huge problem. The courts, I'm going to disagree with you, Royce, on how they view Section 1 of the Charter, that saving clause where there's a breach of a right. The case law is very complicated on these issues, and naturally it should be, because you're protecting individual rights, you're balancing the Constitution. The amendments in 82 gave the courts that job. They deliberately gave the courts the job to weigh those things. And that's a complicated thing to do. I could go on at length about it. It'll bore people if I do.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting and delicate topic. And that's why when you have an elephant like Mr. Miller, who has really fumbled every portfolio he's had, when you have a guy like him dealing with something so delicate,
Yeah.
it's a huge problem and very dangerous, frankly.
Well, we'll kind of wrap it up here, but I referee hockey, as you guys probably know, and I always love it when there's four referees on the ice now, two linesmen, two referees, and they start yelling, "Ref, you suck." So does that mean like the police are going to have to come into the building and put everybody in handcuffs? Because I mean, let's fair. Let's be fair to everyone. Let's call it like it is. It's just, to me, it's going down a path that is laughable. And you see the fabric of Canada and so many other nations starting to crumble, and we're dealing with nonsense like this. And really, what does it create? Like, you're afraid to say anything. And that goes back to what we had talked about at the start when I first got into politics. Don't talk about being a Christian. Hide it.
So I just want to share with you, and you may know this, I think you touched on it, Kevin, actually, that Mr. Trump said this week in dealing with
Yes.
Europe and NATO that Europe is losing its European heritage, and that he's going to be active in ensuring that's not the case because of these types of issues.
Yeah.
And when you think about where Canada is and how we are aligning ourselves with the very thing Mr. Trump is fighting against, and I'm not a huge fan of Mr. Trump. There's some policies that are good, some that are bad, but we are on the wrong side of the most important ally we have, and the most important trading partner we have, and frankly, the very principles that founded both the United States and Canada. And we are on completely the wrong path. There will be a price to pay.
I want to put in a final thought and get your quick comment on it. So everyone knows that the mainstream media does get money for government funding for certain reporters and stuff like that. So a new one has come out, and the government will pay for a reporter as long as the reporter is either Black, Indigenous, of a racialized, significant racialized culture, or a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and they write specifically about stories for that. But nothing else. Nothing else.
And they'll choose which cultures and minority groups are appropriate.
Right. They are choosing. Yeah, you have to apply under their, which category you fall under and what stories you're going to, that's underrepresented in the media, and they want to see more stories about that. And you have to make sure that all your stories are based on that, or the government doesn't give you the check to fund them. So isn't this controlling the media? Am I missing something? And isn't this controlling the narrative?
So what happens if you're like a reporter in Kenora and nothing is happening in those communities that day? Just seems like a typical big government heavy-handed response that's ultimately going to be ineffective, ineffectual.
I just think it's more proof of trying to control the narrative. Gentlemen, good discussion. Thank you very much. And on the next episode, I think we're going to talk about some results that came out about the popularity of premiers. So please come back and watch the next episode of Inside Politics. Make sure you follow us and smash the like button.
Thanks for watching Inside Politics with Kevin Klein. Please like and subscribe to this channel and visit thewinnipegssun.com for more.